Welcome, everyone, to the ProVideoPages podcast and webinar series. Today, for our webinar, I'm joined by Connie Kadansky, who is an authority on enhancing sales performance and refining hiring practices. She provides transformative strategies that amplify positive intelligence in sales, enabling confident and consistent prospecting that leads to increased sales revenue. She helps hiring authorities avoid costly mistakes in hiring salespeople. Welcome, Connie.
Thank you, Anne.
I'm going to let you take it away here in a second, but as I was reading that, I just was thinking about how much I learned while you were putting this presentation together. So I just want to say I'm so excited to see what you've got, and I'm more excited for what the value that you're bringing for our audience. So if you're ready, go ahead and take it away.
Yes, thank you. And so, in working with hiring authorities for 28 years now, I've learned a lot about what really costs them money. And with small business, when hiring a salesperson, wow, that can get very expensive and also heartbreaking. And so today I'm going to share from my experience from thousands of other companies throughout the country on really how you can tighten up your interviewing process and talking about assessments and the possibility of you finding an assessment that really serves you well. And when you look at hiring mistakes, the first time thing, and especially with small business, is really understanding what's the cost of a bad hire. Wow, you may have had that experience in the past, and if you haven't, it can be very costly. And sometimes the small business owners don't really know about how to construct a compensation package. I am not an expert in that. However, I do know someone that I could introduce you to if that's an issue. You just really want to have your compensation package down right before you ever go out and start in that interviewing process for salespeople. So that we can set the context for this, let's look at this client-driven sales roadmap, and I've modified it from the story brand imaging. All selling is solving people's problem for a profit. Now, that can be one of your first interview questions, is to ask salespeople, what is your definition of sales? And it's so interesting that oftentimes they really struggle with that. So you have a potential client, can be an individual consumer, male, female, company, corporation, that has a problem that you can solve. You have this solution for it. And they meet you, they meet your salesperson, and that salesperson has expertise in your product or service. And also they have tactical empathy. And that is so key in our selling environment right now. So what do I mean by tactical empathy? Is the salesperson has the ability to articulate how the prospect is thinking and feeling about their problem without saying, I understand, I get it, that they really have that ability to communicate that to the prospect. And when they can do that, the prospect starts leaning in because they feel that the salesperson understands their frustration, whatever they're feeling about their problem. And then you have a process that can and create a plan for them to get to solution. And then guess what? Your salesperson must be able to call that prospect into action. So there are some prospects that are going to say, let's get started. Where do I pay? How do I pay you? They've done their research. They're ready for it. And a salesperson has to have that ability to get a committed answer to move forward. So many salespeople, they get a counterfeit yes. And to be able to get that committed confirmation out onto a next step. And that oftentimes is where salespeople have big challenges. And then moving to whether the prospect is coming from they want to avoid failure and that's where their mindset is, or they truly want to succeed. So it depends on do they want to avoid failure or do they want to move forward into success? So a business mindset. So this is the first component of a business mindset that you can create throughout your culture. And with salespeople, that all they're thinking about is focusing on identifying and capitalizing on opportunities to create impact, to solve that problem, and also to generate profit. So that's the mindset that you are looking for with your salespeople. So when it comes time to do in that interviewing process, it's called the interviewing process, not the hiring process. So I'm going to give you 2 questions. I've already given you one is to ask them, hey, define what selling is for you, right? There are 2 questions in that initial interview. And the research shows that good salespeople, they get an emotional juice from the process and they're intrigued with it. And ask them, tell me about your first selling experience. They can go back to 5 years old, elementary, junior high, high school, college, whatever it is. Because if they really do get selling, enjoy selling, oftentimes they will be positive about it. Or I've talked to district managers that are successful that have shared that they were in high school and, oh, their football team, they had to go out and knock on doors and ask their neighbors. And, oh, I didn't really like it. However, I couldn't let my football team down. And so you get a feel for where they are. And if you ask them that question, tell me about your first selling experience, and they lean back and moan and say, oh, my mom took my cookies to her office and sold them all for me, right? So really monitor yourself, do a lot of Socratic questioning. Tell me more about that. What is it? And probe as deep as you can to get a sincere, authentic feel for how they had that first experience. It's going to make all the difference in the world as far as their intrigue for this process. And then another premise here of what I believe. Now, some people disagree with me. You can decide whether you agree or disagree. I believe people sell how they buy. And so tell me about the last expensive product or service you purchased. Now, if you're interviewing an intern that and they may not have had a real last expensive. So the goal here is to find out what they consider expensive and pro for their process. So I had a client that was interviewing for a commercial insurance where these are selling insurance and to high-end businesses and local businesses. And the gentleman said, $180 Ray-Ban sunglasses. And then, what was your process like? Oh, man, I shopped and shopped. He was a price shopper. And so really getting a feel for how they purchase can give you an idea if that really fits into your culture. So have fun with those. Even start asking different salespeople that you're aware of in your network. Hey, tell me about your first selling experience and try it on for size because that can be very intriguing and to start this whole process for you. So some of the biggest hiring mistakes that are made is focusing too much on experience over potential. Now, how do you go about this? You can do a quick Google search or a Perplexity AI search on motivational interviewing. It is very fascinating because you're trying to get underneath what is motivating for this individual. And that gives you an idea about their potential. So, motivational interviewing to find out what is at the core of their motivation. Are they here just to, make a quick buck, or do they genuinely have that motivation to be of service and to make money and make some profit for you, etc.? Not assessing for cultural fit early on. Now, there is an assessment. I do not sell it. It's the cultural index that I highly recommend that you check out and explore, because are they a cultural fit for you? So what kind of culture do you have? Are you really high-paced, fast-paced, assertive, aggressive type of organization? Or are you more laid back, consultative selling, etc.? So assessing for cultural fit right up front can be very positive for you in this whole process. Underestimating the soft skills, the communication skills, that tactical empathy, the ability to build relationships, because you want them to build relationships. However, you don't want them to be so into the relationship that they forget about what they're selling. So just that really having a deep understanding and good questions to get a feel for their soft skills and the ability to communicate, asking them for examples of relationship building. And a lack of structured interview process. Oh, yes, you need one of those, and you need to follow it as precise with every candidate that you interview, so that all that spontaneity, etc., to be able to have a structured interview process so that everybody is going through that same process and you're asking those same questions to everyone. You're exploring. Overselling the position. Oh, I see this in business owners. You are passionate about your business. You know how to sell whatever you sell. And having a interview and overselling the position where they are so excited about it. And then if you decide to do an assessment, sometimes it can be a difficult process. So that behavioral interview, motivational interview, keeping your discipline very, very tight on that interviewing process without overselling the position. I hope that makes sense. I see. Ignoring the importance of resilience and grit. Think about it. Sales is an interesting profession, and I was talking to somebody in commercial insurance the other day. He's a high-end VP, and he said that they know it takes 5 to 12 touches before somebody opens up. And so if you have somebody that is not going to hang in there for at least 5 times in their outreach, that is something to really pay attention to and interview for. Get examples about, etc. Overvaluing technical and knowledge skills. So yes, you need those technical skills, but if going back to underestimating their soft skills. So do they really enjoy the process? Do they like people? I'm reading Barbara Streisand's book, and one of her best songs in the world is People Who Need People. Do they enjoy people? Because sometimes these really high technical skills, they're maybe very good at that. However, they're not spontaneous with a prospect because they're so caught in their head, etc. Skipping practical assessments and role play. there was an individual that part of the role and responsibility of that salesperson is to show up at the local chamber of commerce on a regular basis. And one of the things that the hiring authority does with a potential sales candidate before she ever hires is invite them to a networking event. And not a whole lot of instruction, no, not a whole lot of questions, and just to be able to see, is that individual comfortable in that environment? So role plays are very important. I have different recruiting firms that have different role plays that somebody does not need to know a lot. Please don't ask people, sell me this pencil. That is so kooky. Sell me this pencil. Wow. You ask what a hiring authority. So, hey, why don't you sell me this pencil? And they just kind of mumble bumble. So it needs to be real life. It needs to be well planned in order to assess their capabilities, and neglecting to discuss failure and talk to people about that. And that nobody's going to land every deal. And how do they handle that? We've all had heartbreaking opportunities as salespeople that we just thought it was going to be great, and somebody went cyber silent. And just to be able to have some questions around what they consider as failure, and see if they're humble enough to admit failure, and what was their learning opportunity in that. And did they really take it and learn from it? Okay, here's a big one, especially for small business owners. If you need a salesperson, you want one, and oh, you just like it. You have other things to do, is rushing that sales process and ignoring those red flags, where you get a feel that there's something going on here, but not exploring it, because it will come back. It will come back to haunt you. So, sales assessments are far and wide. I mean, the last time I looked, there's over 100,000 assessments. And to use or not to use. So, the pros are they can improve your hiring quality, help you with objective decision making, and for you to be able to see assessments as a tool in your toolbox, that interview, your references, the resume, there are a lot of other components in this interviewing process. An assessment tool can be of value when you see it for what it is. Efficiency in screening, there are some assessments that you can do a simple screener before they even have a first interview with you. And so you have to be careful with that, because I have some people go, oh, I don't want to screen out somebody that could be really good. So it does depend on your product and your service in that regard. And predicting success. There are some very sophisticated assessments that you can invest in your current top producers and have them take it, and then have them compare your candidates. That can get a little bit pricey. And so they are good predictors. And are they the be-all, end-all? That's what I want you to hear. No, they're not the be-all, end-all. And definitely reduce turnover cost. So many people will hire a salesperson, and then the honeymoon effect kicks in. What do I mean by that? They've already made the commitment. They see something that they're not like, I don't want to look at that. I've already made a commitment here, instead of really being able to address. And even when you use an assessment, oftentimes if you choose to hire them, that assessment turns into a coaching and development tool. You never share an assessment with a candidate. Once you hire them, you can use that, because no candidate is going to come to you 100% developed. They're just not. But you can use those to help you ramp people up quicker by looking at their strengths and also being very clear with them on where they need to training, development, and improving. So what are the cons here? So there is a financial investment. There are some assessments that you can buy for $49, and then I'm aware of one for $1,500. So they just know that there's a financial investment. It can be time consuming to explore what type. We're going to talk about that today. So it can be a little time consuming. And you have to be considerate of a candidate experience. So in the recruiting world that is sales on steroids, I have some clients that use 4 before they will ever bring on a candidate because it is a tough position. They can make a good money. However, it is very concentrated. So you have to decide, what do you want your candidate's experience to be? Reliability and validity concerns. Everybody's concerned about that. I'm going to tell you how you can get through that. And then ethical and legal considerations. So assessments are legal. And we'll talk about what you need to ask any type of a provider for assessments. So just to be aware of that. Oftentimes, if you're going to use one, let people know in the very first, wait, have you taken an assessment? Let them know right up front. Candidates are used to these now. So how do you choose the right pre-hire assessment? Okay, so the first order of business is for you to sit down and write down your ideal candidate. Everything you can possibly think. The psychographics, the demographics, ideal dream come true. And you get crystal clear on that. Then you get a yellow highlighter and you go through your ideal and highlight the non-negotiables. You're not going to negotiate on that particular ideal. Behavior, personality, their experience, get crystal clear. And then decide, okay, where are some of these areas where I'll deviate? And get clear there too. Where will you deviate? And then make a list of, heck no, I don't want anybody that doesn't have a good teeth or something like that. I'm being a little funny here, but to be able to say, absolutely not, we will not accept ABC. And many of you might have different background checks, etc. But the key here is you get crystal clear on who your ideal is. The more you do that, the more that you will get candidates that are going to be closer to that ideal. And then understanding your sales cycle. Is it a transactional sale? Oh, and is it tangible or intangible? Because a good salesperson in one industry does not mean they'll be good in another. A particular example recently, there was a really high producer that did exceptional in selling beer to restaurants and a tangible sale, restaurant, right? And he was being interviewed for commercial insurance. This is a completely different sale. So when you think about transactional, it's somebody who is very good on the front end, more aggressive. And then if you have an intangible sale, somebody that is more relationship building, has a little bit more patience, and is more of a consultative selling style. So really recognize that more complex products, they really nurture long term. And so be very considerate of understanding your tangible, intangible, and don't think that a salesperson that was good at X will be good at Y. And something I highly recommend that you do is get word of mouth in your industry. talk to people who are in your industry. They're not your competitors. They may be in your networking group or know somebody. Is what are their best practices? What are they using? So there are some very industry specific requirements and industry trends. So talk to different people about what they may be using and get a feel for their interviewing process. Talk to maybe your HR consultant that may help you in getting a feel of what's going on in the industry. And some assessments, now you're not going to use all of these. Some assessments include all of these is the cognitive to find out, do they really have those problem solving skills? What is their learning style? And are they adaptable? Do they need those analytical abilities? And are they strategic? Do they have that strategic way of looking at different issues and problems, strategic thinking? There's an assessment that is not really a pre-hire assessment. It's the Clifton Strengths. And wow, that can be very informative to get a feel for somebody and are they going to fit into your process. And some salespeople are all strategy, they're all analytical, but they don't have the relationship building that is there. Personality is throughout an individual, but just assessing on personality, be careful. Just because somebody is a high I or a high D on the DISC scale, does that mean that they're going to be an overall good salesperson for you? Not necessarily. So there's a personality component in everything. They have good personalities. Do they have ability to move that sale forward? So yes, it is part of the process here for sure. Okay, skill-based. Let's look at some skills. So doing demonstrations, online virtual presentations for data analytics or something that they're selling, do they have the skill? And many people call me and they say, I need somebody that can totally do Excel spreadsheets. And if that is something that is really critical, wow, you need to know that now. I've had people that share that somebody's just can't even navigate a computer. They may be good at selling, but they're not good at all those different Excel spreadsheets, etc. So if that's important, assess it. And then situational judgment tests, it just depends on your industry around doing real scenarios. There are companies that will put people through a simulator if this is a real critical component here. So that just gives you an idea about the different assessments out there. Now, when we look at assessments, no assessment is 100% valid because people are taking it, right? And that there are a very few that assess for embellishment and positive posturing, whether that candidate is choosing answers believed to be most desirable. So just know they're not 100%. It's a tool in your toolbox. I always say, don't assess people till they've made it to second base with you using a baseball analogy. You feel they have the basic skills, they fit your culture, you would look forward to communicating or seeing them on a daily basis, then assess at second base. So when exploring an assessment is to be able to, number one, ask if it is psychometrically calibrated. And there's a methodology, and it costs companies millions to be able to say that their assessment is psychometrically calibrated. And what that's taken into consideration is the construction, reliability, validity that has 3 different components, scaling and norming, and standardization. So there are only a handful that are psychometrically calibrated, meaning that they have passed this statistical and mathematical methods to psychological data to ensure that their measurements are reliable and valid. So ask them about their validity studies. They're boringer than heck. But just to be able to ask them, you're not going to understand them, but do you have reliability and validity studies? Do they have an actual technical manual that says yes? And ask if the financial investment includes support and training to interpret the assessment. And most companies will. They have somebody on staff that will work you through that process. And you just don't want them to add a fee on top of that. And does it abide by EEOC guidelines? So any assessment, they're always trying to capture data. And right up front, they even ask, are you male or female or XYZ? People really don't have to answer those questions. And so to ask them if it follows those EEOC guidelines. Respect your candidate's time. Yes, yes. Some of these assessments can take as long as 72 minutes. And then some people, that's way too long. So it just depends on you and your industry. And please don't ask assessment companies for freebies. The people that are willing to do comp for you, oftentimes it's a very low cost. So if you see them as assessments, not cost. So I am hoping that this answers many of your questions and that you found this valuable. And if any of you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to me and do some of your own exploration.
Thank you, Connie, so much. There's so much great information in here. And if you haven't downloaded the handout that goes with that, please do, because there's great information on there that you can take away and decide what your path is for hiring your salesperson. So thank you so much, Connie.
You're welcome.